Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Hey, I've got something I want to share with you from Bob Goff in his book, Catching Whimsy. Yeah. And I read this a couple weeks ago. In Matthew chapter 25, verse 40, it says this, and this is like at the end of the age, the king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." So do you use like an app on your phone? Could be Google Maps, could be something else. And I know how to get a lot of places, but it does take into account the traffic. So I do use it, even going to some places that I know how to get there. And there was a time where I absolutely would not, but I do now. But so Jesus in this passage, he talks about all the things that he really appreciates, and that these least, there's these people that are kind of on the outside, the kind of folks that maybe we don't seek out all the time. But what he's saying is, if you want to find me, you won't find me on Google Maps, but you will encounter me in these places. So what are those places? Well, if you find people who are hungry and thirsty, so you can be intentional about it. You can find people who are hungry and thirsty. Maybe people who are sick, or people who feel on the outside. Naked people, or people that are in jail. Just saw something recently. This guy was applying for a job, and they said, "Oh, there's this 4-year gap here. Where were you?" He says, "Oh, Yale." And it's like, "Oh, great, you've got the job." And he asks him when he starts, and tells him, and then the guy says, "I'm really happy about my job." Maybe he wasn't at Yale. Maybe he was somewhere else. But anyway, we kind of look down on people that are in jail. Jesus was in jail. There's a lot of famous people that have been in prison. And Jesus says that whatever you do to those people, like you do it to him. So if you're trying to put a pin on Jesus, trying to find him, then this is where you're going to find him, with people that are hungry and thirsty, people that are sick. So how do we apply that? You know, all these places, you know, they're not necessarily going to come to church. So you're probably going to have to leave the church building. Maybe you're at a Bible study in somebody's house. You're going to need to leave the Bible study. And, you know, you'd be amazed at people that they'll let in to see folks in prison. I remember I had a friend of mine that was in jail, and it was DuPage County, so it was close to where my mom lived. She lived right next door to the county complex. And so on Thanksgiving and Christmas, I went over. And actually on Christmas, even though my wife wasn't cleared to go in with me, there was nobody that was visiting on Christmas Day. And I said, "Yeah, I'm here for the visit." They got my card on file, and they're kind of like, and who's she? I said, "That's my wife." And they said, "Well, she's not in the thing here." I said, "No, I know, but I just love this logic." I just said, "It's Christmas." And the guy just said, "Okay." And she got to go in. And the person that was in was a friend of hers as well. And he probably they hadn't seen each other in months. And it was really a cool Christmas thing. But you know, God is in those things when we go out of our way. There are nursing homes, there are hospitals, there are all sorts of places. I was talking to somebody who just retired, and they said, "You know, I would like to do a regular visit at nursing home." And I said, "You know what, I've already lined it up. We just got to bring him over, and he'll be great at it because he's just like really outgoing." And I think those are the kinds of things that, like if you read this passage right, I think it really makes Jesus happy. Whatever you did for one of the least of these, people that get forgotten here on planet Earth, Jesus says it makes a difference to me. So I know a couple people that do this. Both widows, they would have like water bottles in their car. They'd have bags filled with, they'd have some food, maybe a $5 McDonald's card, and some different things. And so when they'd see homeless people, they would give them that stuff. I thought that was so cool. One of them, it was one of the seniors, and I was backing her car out of our driveway because it's a little tricky. And I see all these bags in there, and she says, "Oh, that's when I encounter homeless people." Folks, Jesus loves when you do that, and he says, "What you do to them, you do to me." God bless you. You won't find Jesus on Google Maps. But if you find hungry people, thirsty people, naked people, folks in jail, people that are sick, and you care for them, you just found Jesus. God bless you. Have a great week.